Hey there. I wanted to create a video about conscious conversations. So, where I work, we have a training called High Reliability Training, and call it HRO for short. And it stemmed from super safe environments like nuclear power plants and airline folks, pilots, things like that. You know how they have certain checklists that they do to ensure the most potential for zero harm as much as possible, right? Like our whole goal is to have zero preventable harm with our HRO training. And part of that, well, I'd say a huge part of it actually, is clear communication. And as part of the training on clear communication, we have something called caring conversations. And I'm sure that's a similar concept at a lot of places. I'm sure it's not just our site, but so there's caring conversations, and one of the goals of the caring conversation is to help somebody understand how what they're doing might be affecting your work, or even in my environment, which is patient care environment, might be affecting, say, patient care and outcomes for patients. So say, for example, somebody wasn't completing their tasks on their shift, which can happen just naturally because sometimes shifts get busy, but sometimes people just don't feel like doing it, so they don't do it, and then that creates it can create some hard feelings and things like that for the next person coming on, right? Like, oh my gosh, Sally Jane never cleans the showers, and every time I come on, I always have the showers to clean. So in that circumstance, what we would ask then is the person who's coming on after Sally Jane, have a caring conversation with her, like something along the lines of, you know, Sally Jane, I know that you've been taught how to clean the showers. Is there any other barriers to not cleaning the showers? Because when I come on and the showers aren't clean, then it delays the patients being able to get into the shower in the morning, and then if they don't get into the shower right away, then they don't participate fully in group because they feel like they need a shower and they're more concerned about the shower, things like that. So you would let the person know. First, you would seek to understand, like, is there something I can help you with? Is there a barrier to it? What is the reason around it? Maybe nobody told Sally Jane to clean the shower. Who knows, right? And I know from experience that 99% of the time, what I think would be the barrier is not the barrier. And it's usually something I wouldn't have even thought of. And it's usually pretty legit. It's not because the person was being lazy. So that's a caring conversation. But what I've learned of in my training with love and authenticity practitioner and emotion, mind, and energy practitioner is what's called a conscious conversation. And that takes the caring conversation to a much deeper level. When you have a conscious conversation with somebody, you are aware that you have your own triggers, and something that somebody else does can stimulate a trigger within you that causes you to feel an emotion that's not pleasant. So then at that point, it really is something that somebody else is doing unintentionally, hitting stuff that you've stored inside of you that's triggering you, that really has nothing to do with that person, or in this case, when I'm talking about work, the work that person is doing. It's really you. And when you become conscious of what is happening in you, then you can have a conscious conversation. And when both people are conscious of what is happening within them, you can have a truly conscious conversation where it's going both ways, right? Like, you're aware of what your stuff is and what triggers you, and you don't allow that to affect how you are responding to the other person in the conversation, and they're aware and they're recognizing that, and they're not letting that get in the way of their conversation with you. Let me see if I can think of a good example here. Of course, nothing's coming immediately to mind. Let's say that and this isn't true, this is just an example, but let's say that as I was growing up, I had a friend who would tease me and raise her eyebrow at me if I said something that she thought was stupid. Again, not true, but just an example. And when a new coworker comes in, they actually raise their eyebrow when they're curious about something. However, because I have stored hard emotions in me from my friend teasing me and raising her eyebrow when she teased me, when I see somebody else raise their eyebrow, it triggers that emotion in me. So at that point, I'm not responding from the perspective, and if it's unconscious, right? I'm not responding from the perspective of adult me in this moment. I actually, and this happens all the time, and now that you become aware of it, you can start to notice what your triggers are and see how you revert back. But I revert back to 10-year-old me on the schoolyard who has hurt feelings, like my friend is teasing me again, raising that eyebrow. When that's not the case at all with this new person, they're actually just being curious and inquisitive, and that's how their facial expressions manifest when they're feeling that curiosity. So that's one example. And just kind of be aware of it, because when you're having a conversation with somebody, tone of voice, I think for me, tone of voice can be a big one. If somebody comes at me with a tone of voice that, from my history, from my perspective, let's see, what's another way to put it? If I've been in situations in the past where somebody has, well, I'm not saying if, I have been in situations in the past where people have talked down to me in a way that was meant to make me feel small and insignificant, in a way to control me. They have, trying to think of how to put it into words, and I'm sure others have experienced this too, talked with a tone of voice of, you're stupid. You know, they're not saying you're stupid, but the tone of voice is making you feel that way. So let's say that in my line of work, where we encourage questions, we encourage people to be clear and all on the same page, because patients' lives are in our hands. Clear communication is good. And sometimes folks don't always know the best way to deliver clear communication. We're all figuring it out together. We're all working on it together. We're all growing and evolving and expanding together on this. So maybe somebody's in a hurry, and when they say something or ask me something, their tone of voice comes across to me in the way that back however many years ago, when somebody had talked to me that way and made me feel 2 feet tall, I felt judged and I felt like I had to defend myself. So now in this moment where another professional is clarifying something, the way that they're saying it, which has nothing to do with me, is actually triggering those thoughts and feelings and emotions from me in the past that made me feel small. So I feel now in the moment like defending myself, like I have to defend myself. Which then, if I respond without realizing what's happening, and that's not really why they're coming at me that way, that they're just in a hurry, they need to get the information. If I don't consciously realize that, I may respond to them in a way that's unprofessional. I may shut down. I may not want to work with them because I can't get along with them. We don't have the right personality. You know, there's a whole line of things that could happen from that. And I'm not, when I share this, it's to create awareness. It's to start asking yourself questions. It's to start reflecting and learning about you. What are the different types of personas you have that come out based on different triggers? I talked a little bit about it in the last video that I made about personas. A persona has a need that it's trying to meet, and it's usually trying to meet it in an unhealthy way. And when you can figure out what that need is, then you can come up with a new way to meet, a healthier way, a more productive, a more, a way that makes your life a little better, way to meet that persona's need, rather than like in the case where I just talked about somebody talking in a tone of voice that would make me shut down. Then I would let my persona know, oh, okay, let me think here. So here's my persona of shrinking down or feeling judged. And that persona has the need to, what can the need be there? To feel that persona. So when I'm feeling judged, what I instead want to feel is appreciated and respected. So when I find myself in a moment where that persona is coming out and where that persona is being triggered, having thought through it here in the moment, I know that when I'm having that conversation with the person who's coming at me, not because I've done anything wrong or that I need to justify anything to them, but because they're looking for some information because they're not clear on what's happening, and I'm the person that has that information, or they think I am, and especially if they're in a hurry in a healthcare setting, it can come across not very nice sometimes, or that's what's triggering me, right? So when that's happening, now I know I've been triggered. This trigger is causing my persona to feel judged. I know that this persona needs to feel respected, and I forgot the one that I just said. Dang it. I'll have to go back and rewatch my video. So anyway, in the moment when that's happening, I can plan something for that. Like right now, I can say, okay, when I'm feeling that trigger in me, I'm going to take a deep breath into my heart, and I'm going to silently in my head, as things are happening, say, you are respected, you are loved, you are whatever the other word was that I had said. And then when you're reflecting on these things and you're understanding your triggers and other things that cause you to maybe respond in ways that aren't helpful outside of the situations themselves, then you are setting yourself up for success in the future when it occurs again. And you'll be amazed, the more you work through your personas and the more you work through your triggers, life starts to flow more, and you start to feel more, you trust yourself more, because you know that no matter what is happening outside of you, you have the awareness inside to respond from a place of awareness and grounded centeredness. And like with the work example, say if you're grounded and centered in the work that you're doing, no matter what anybody else outside might be judging you, not knowing the situation or needing to know, what any of that, if you're grounded and centered in what you're doing, then in this case, you would have no reason to, you would have no reason to not feel judged. You would have no reason to, there's a concept in me and I'm trying to find the words for it. In this case, if you were grounded and centered in the work that you're doing, and you knew, again, patient care, that you were providing the best patient care and making the best decision possible in the moment for the patient, no matter what somebody coming at you with questions says or does, you're grounded. You're grounded in what you're doing and responding to them from a place of authenticity and purpose, and you're probably going to make them feel much better because you're able to provide them authentic answers, and instead of getting triggered by it, Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. You'll get triggered by it less and less because you know you're grounded and centered in it, and there's no room for anybody to judge that, right? Okay, I hope I didn't confuse things too much. I hope I helped maybe expand your ideas and thoughts a little more around conscious conversations. I feel like there's something more to come through though, so I'm not ready to quite end it. Maybe just recapping then that when you're talking with somebody and you have that awareness of what's moving through you, why it's moving through you, and then how to, if you are getting triggered, how to allow that to not get in the way of the conversation that you're having, and to keep the conversation flowing and helpful. And when the other person is also aware of their triggers and aware of what thoughts they might be having, and not letting those affect the actual conversation itself, and even using it as a launching point, like, oh geez, like, okay, so let's say that person was coming at me with the tone of voice, and I recognize now that I had that trigger. I could even say to them, oh, I just felt myself get triggered. I think it was because I perceived a tone of judgment in your voice, and it's totally not on you. That was a trigger for me, and I'm so proud of myself that I even recognized that, right? So anyway, sorry, what were you saying? Something like that. I know I do that sometimes, even in my conversations with people in general. I'll say something like, oh, I just felt some resistance there to that. So anyway, I think that's it. Thanks. If you watched this far, thank you. Bye.